Sergio Perez is once again in a tough spot, facing the real possibility of losing his seat at Red Bull for 2025. But here's the kicker, there's a growing chance that Red Bull could even make a change mid-season. With the competition heating up in both the Constructors and Drivers' Championships, Red Bull can't afford to take any chances. The latest comments from Christian Horner and Dr. Helmut Marko, along with Perez's own brutal self-assessment of his recent performance, raise serious questions about his future. Could we see a switch sooner than expected? Perez has struggled significantly in the past few races, and when we look at the numbers, it's hard to ignore just how much he's been underperforming. Since the Miami Grand Prix, over the last 6 races, Perez has managed to score only 11 points. To put this in perspective, Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas has outscored Perez over the same stretch. Even Logan Sargent, the Williams driver, has managed to outqualify Perez 7 times this season, which is more than 50% of the races. This paints a worrying picture for Red Bull, especially with the team's high expectations. Adding fuel to the fire, Perez's current position in the Drivers' Championship is under threat. A clause in his contract reportedly demands that he cannot be more than 6 places behind Max Verstappen or have a points gap greater than 100 before the summer break. Right now, Perez sits in 6th, but that gap to the Mercedes drivers is shrinking, and it wouldn't take much for things to go from bad to worse. This is a critical time for Perez, and Red Bull is facing a major decision. So why is Perez's future in doubt? The truth is, Red Bull simply can't afford to continue with a driver who's struggling this much, especially when their main title contender, Max Verstappen, is fighting to defend not only individual victories but also Red Bull's position in the Constructors' Championship. Perez's performance has been an increasing concern, not just because of his points tally but also his inability to capitalize on opportunities. Take the Silverstone race, for instance. Perez's strategy was completely thrown off by poor timing from the pit wall. They made the decision to put him on the intermediate tires too early, and that decision hurt his race massively. If Red Bull can make mistakes like this when it comes to strategy, it only raises more questions about Perez's place in the team. And it's not just that race. Looking at the bigger picture, Perez's struggles have been clear for a while. He's been inconsistent, and while he's shown flashes of brilliance in the past, the recent performances have simply not been good enough. With McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes all showing improved form, Red Bull has to consider what's best for the team's future. This brings us to the big question, is it time for Red Bull to make a change? The team is in the midst of a serious championship battle, and every point counts. Perez's lack of consistency could cost them both titles. With Mercedes bringing new upgrades and pushing hard for the Constructors' title, Red Bull can't afford to wait much longer to make a decision. Now, if Red Bull does make a change, who could step in to replace Perez? There's one name that keeps popping up in the conversation: Daniel Ricciardo. After his return to AlphaTauri, Ricciardo has shown he's still got the skill to compete at the highest level. While some might have counted him out earlier in the season, his performance has improved, and he's starting to look like a strong candidate for the Red Bull seat. But here's the tricky part. Red Bull has always been hesitant to have 2 competitive drivers in the team. The focus is on Max Verstappen, and they don't want a situation where both drivers are regularly fighting for race wins, potentially splitting points and causing tension within the team. However, Ricciardo's experience could be a huge asset, especially as Red Bull looks to protect its position in both championships. He's a proven driver, and if Perez continues to struggle, Ricciardo might just be the safer bet. Interestingly, Ricciardo himself has spoken about the possibility of a mid-season switch. He's not one to make predictions, but he hasn't ruled anything out either. As he put it, nothing is certain in this sport. While his future may still be up in the air, Ricciardo's calm and measured approach to the situation suggests he's ready to take whatever comes his way. So, could Daniel Ricciardo be the answer to Red Bull's problems? The team needs consistency, reliability, and someone who can work alongside Verstappen without creating chaos. Ricciardo's experience and ability to adapt could make him the ideal solution. But what about the other drivers on Red Bull's radar? There's another factor in play that could influence Perez's future, and that's the potential of Red Bull's young drivers. Lawson, currently with AlphaTauri, has been impressing in his testing and development work. If the team sees him as a future talent, they may want to give him a shot alongside Verstappen, even though it's still early in his career. Lawson has been linked with a possible promotion to Red Bull, especially with the team needing to secure a competitive second driver. If the Kiwi proves himself in testing, he could force his way into the conversation, particularly as Perez continues to struggle. It's no secret that Red Bull values young talent, and with a driver like Lawson waiting in the wings, Perez's position could become even more precarious. For Perez, the situation is clear. He needs to deliver solid results in the upcoming races, particularly in Hungary and Spa. If he fails to make a significant impact in those races, Red Bull may have no choice but to act quickly and replace him before the summer break. Dr. Helmut Marko has made it clear that Perez's future could be determined during the mid-season, and the pressure is mounting. And if Perez does get replaced, how would that affect Red Bull in the championships? The team can't afford to lose ground in the constructors' race, and with Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren all looking stronger, a change could be the key to securing those vital points. The competition is intense, and every decision counts. There's no doubt that the stakes are high for Red Bull. With both championships still very much in play, especially the constructors' title, they can't afford to take risks with an underperforming driver. Perez's struggles have already cost them valuable points, and with the other teams closing the gap, Red Bull has to be careful about how they handle their second seat. What makes this situation even more interesting is the money Perez brings to the table. His sponsorship deals, especially from Telmex and the merchandise sales in Latin America, have been significant for Red Bull. It's a big reason why the team hasn't moved on from him yet, despite his recent performances. But in Formula One, results speak louder than sponsorship money. If Perez can't deliver, even the financial benefits might not be enough to save his seat. Looking ahead, the team's future could very well hinge on this decision. Red Bull can't afford to slip up, especially with Mercedes pushing hard to challenge them for both titles. Ricciardo could be the driver they need to ensure a more secure future, one where Red Bull remains dominant. But it's also clear that the team is looking at its long-term strategy, which may involve bringing in younger talent like Lawson to secure the team's future. The next few races will be crucial for Perez. He has the chance to prove that he belongs in that seat, but the pressure is on. If he doesn't perform, we could see a mid-season shakeup, and that might just be the turning point Red Bull needs. As we look ahead to the upcoming races, Perez's fate is hanging in the balance. The next few weeks will decide whether he can turn his season around or if Red Bull will pull the trigger on a mid-season switch. If Perez can perform well in Hungary and Spa, he might buy himself more time. However, if the struggles continue, the team might not hesitate to make a change. The rumors surrounding Daniel Ricciardo's potential move to Red Bull aren't going away. In fact, they've only gained more traction as Perez's performances have faltered. Ricciardo's calm approach and clear understanding of the sport make him an attractive option for Red Bull. While they may not want to put too much pressure on Verstappen by bringing in a driver who could challenge him for wins, Ricciardo has the experience to be a reliable second driver who could help in the constructors' battle without causing any tension with Verstappen. Meanwhile, Liam Lawson's future with Red Bull is another factor to keep an eye on. If Perez is replaced, Lawson could be the one to take over, giving the team a fresh young talent to complement Verstappen. The Kiwi has been impressive in his testing and development role, and Red Bull may see this as the perfect time to give him a shot in the main team. If Lawson is promoted, it would mark the beginning of a new era for Red Bull, one where youth and experience come together to create a more balanced team. Ultimately, the next few races will be make or break for Perez. He has the opportunity to prove that he can still deliver, but the pressure is on, and the team is closely watching his every move. If he doesn't deliver, expect to see a major shift in the team dynamic before the summer break. The reality is, Red Bull is at a crossroads. Perez's performance has been underwhelming, and with the Constructors and Drivers' Championships so tightly contested, there's little room for error. The team is at the top of the sport right now, but maintaining that position requires consistency, and that's something Perez hasn't been able to deliver recently. While his experience and financial contributions are significant, Red Bull may ultimately prioritize results over all else, especially with the likes of Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren all closing the gap. If Perez is replaced, Ricciardo seems like a natural choice. His experience and ability to adapt could bring stability to the team, and he's proven he can still compete at a high level. However, it's not just about Ricciardo, there's also the possibility of bringing in younger talent like Lawson. This would be a bold move, but Red Bull has never been afraid to take risks with young drivers, and Lawson could be the future of the team. Either way, Perez's future at Red Bull is uncertain. The next few races will be critical for him to prove his worth. If he can't deliver the results the team expects, we may see a change sooner rather than later. Red Bull is in the business of winning, and every point counts. It's a tough situation for Perez, but ultimately, it's a decision the team will have to make for the good of the team and their championship hopes. So, what do you think? Should Red Bull replace Perez with Ricciardo or take a risk on Lawson? And where do you see the team standing in both championships by the end of the season? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the next video on your screen.